Hey everybody, welcome to the In The Endrows podcast, the podcast where we interview farmers and modders alike. This week, we're going to be talking to Tyson Diniz. Is that how I say it? I guess I've never really said it before. Diniz or Diniz? Diniz. I see the emphasis is on the other syllable. Anyway, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Tyson Diniz. I'm the only remaining member of Diniz Farms. When I started the page, there's a few of us. I've been modding since FS19 came out, and I've been playing the entire series since it came out. I even watched the development of it way back in 2007.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you have a long, deep history with Farming Simulator. I learned that very quickly after first getting to know you.
Yes, I was the last memories when I lived on the farm was we were moving, and my John Deere American Farmer disc got destroyed. So I would when we moved to the new place, I just spent days upon days trying to figure out how to download it. Because like you couldn't buy it anywhere. Like the company that made it abandoned the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I stumbled upon SimTractor. And for those of you who don't know what SimTractor is, it was a game developed starting in 1998 on a really, really old game engine. Back before the idea of physics existed in game engines, especially for farming simulators. And the guy who developed it was from France. And I kind of went way off topic here, didn't I?
No, you're fine. This is really good. Yeah, you were just jumping into the first thing I was going to ask you about, because I was going to ask you about, what's your history with Farming Simulator, or what's your history with farming. Let's start with let's go back a little bit. Let's start with what's your history with farming, because almost everybody that's interested in Farming Simulator has some sort of background or interest in agriculture. So I think like me and a lot of other people would be really interested to know, like, what's your history with agriculture? Let's start there.
Okay, so I'm from Ontario, Canada, and here in Ontario, and most of Canada, we have a quota system for dairy farms, which allowed all of these small family dairy farms to stay in business throughout multiple recessions and whatnot, and they're still in business today. Like I went to school with a guy whose dad only milked 20 cows. So my history starts when I was about 3 or 4. We moved out to a small dairy operation. Both my parents were farmers as well, but focusing on myself here, we moved out to this farm. It had two houses on it. We lived in one, the landlord lived in the other, and it was his heifer farm, and his father owned the dairy farm down the road. And this is kind of where I just got really interested in farming. I mean, my dad was a farm mechanic at the same time, right up. I think when I was 3, he quit working at the John Deere dealer. It might have been 4. But so I got to go out to the barn every day. Like I was out there, watching the farmer. He used a chainsaw to cut out the bales and used a wheelbarrow to feed silage. Like this was old school. And I remember riding in the equipment all the time. They had a 4250 and a 2755. And like it just as far back as some of my best memories were sitting on the armrest of that 2755. And the only time I ever rode in the 4250, we took grain to the closest elevator at the time. And then from there, I was about 7. We left that house because it was a rental, like I said earlier. The farmer wanted to hire a farmhand because he was expanding his operation, and my dad didn't want to give up his career, obviously, as now a forklift mechanic, to become a farmhand. So we moved to another farmhouse, another rental, and it was on a 70-acre pig farm. It was a tiny operation, and the guy was getting out of pigs. He was trying to buy a dairy farm, actually. So I only went in that pig barn once, and I kind of got a basic understanding how they did things. I did watch the mixed feed a lot with the New Holland grinder mixer. But the biggest focus on everything that I've learned and everything I know about farming came from my neighbor. He was about, I don't know, 300 feet down the road. I'd walk over to his place every day after school, and I would spend all day just following him around. I was either in the tractor with him, or I was just following him around. He had a dairy farm, and I want to say he might have had 50 cows. milking cows at least. And they had a 4440 and Alice 200. The first tractor I ever drove was his Alice Chalmers 5050, and he also had some old white, it was a rebranded Fiat, just like the 5050 was, but I don't know what model it was. And I remember riding in that 4440 just as much as I rode in that 2755. It was they were always constantly hauling manure. I never realized if you have a small manure tank how much manure you haul every year. So and then I went forage harvesting and just about everything else. But yeah, and then we moved from that farm that I spoke about earlier. We moved from there into a town, and that's where I found out about. That's where I found Sim Tractor, and then this is basically how I got into farming simulator. So it went from Sim Tractor to finding people in the Sim Tractor community who were
Sure.
trying to build a better farming simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the guy that was a moderator on the Sim Tractor forums. His name is Russ. I won't give out his last name on the stream because it probably doesn't want that out there.
Right.
He started a game called Simufarm on the Ogre engine. If you ever played Rigs of Rods, that's the Ogre engine.
Okay.
And I've got a couple videos of it on my YouTube. It was very basic. There was no crops or anything. He had the physics down, but he just didn't have anything else. So that project kind of flopped.
Right.
Then we had another guy, Templar. I don't know how it's the word Templar, but Dutch, I guess. He was from the Netherlands, and he decided he was going to modify the source engine to be a farming simulator. But again, he had the physics down, but he couldn't get the crops. So at the time, there was no competing game to Sim Tractor. And then one day, somebody posted on the forums about this Fendt tractor sitting in a wheat field beside a windmill, and the game was called Bornhof Simulator 2008. And we all just basically pretty much dumped Sim Tractor right then and there. And we were all registered on the Giants forums, and somewhere along the development process, they changed the name to Landward Shaft Simulator 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And we were everybody, any chance we got a chance to see a YouTube video or just a screenshot, it was posted somewhere. Everybody knew about it. It was just a big following, and
Wow.
we were all so excited. And it was pretty life changing when Farm Sim 2008 came out. Like I can't even begin to describe it. You'd have to have played Sim Tractor to understand
That's
what
awesome.
how
You
yeah.
have a longer, deeper history with farming sim than almost anybody else. I mean, you've been following the game. I mean, sounds like you've been following the game since before it was even, public, before it was even released.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
And there's been between Sim Tractor and Farming Simulator, there had to have been so many engine mods that guys have never heard of. Like you had Tractor Source, as I mentioned earlier, Semi-Farm. There's a guy working on a Grand Theft Auto San Andreas farming simulator thing, but
Wow.
nobody could ever figure out the crops. Like they couldn't figure out how to make them not lag, and they couldn't figure out how to make them grow.
Yeah, you can make physics, you can make a model of a tractor drive around pretty well, but it definitely takes a lot of work to make a crop system and all that other stuff that farming sim offers us now.
Yeah, and that's what kind of drives me up the wall when people talk about, oh, farming simulators changed the game engine, but to what?
There's no other game
It's
engine
all,
that does what farming sim does right now.
and there probably never will be.
No, yeah, it takes a lot of investment to get there, and very few other game companies are probably willing to try to make a farming game of all things. I mean, you can see there's some indie games kind of trying it right now. Some cattle and
Yeah,
crops and other games that are trying to compete, but you don't see them around too much. They haven't really made a massive splash. It's just a difficult investment.
and Giants pretty much has the monopoly. They got the contract with everybody, and that contract with John Deere is probably exclusive. Like, there's no way John Deere's going to license their brand on two of the same thing. They never have done that historically, as far as I understand, for
Right.
merchandise and whatnot.
It took a lot of work to get John Deere in the first place.
I can
Like
only imagine.
I
I
can
can only imagine.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of how contracts work with these companies. Sometimes that you pay them to get them in the game, like probably the case with John Deere, or a smaller company might pay you to get their stuff in the game because it's advertising, right? So
Exactly.
it goes back and forth, but a company as big as Deere is probably getting paid by them, which, for good reason.
Yeah, they're getting paid royalties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's how you discovered Farming Simulator. And you've known Farming Simulator as long as anybody else can claim. Do you want to talk about just a little bit about the journey from FS08 to FS19? Just
Yep.
a little bit about that.
Okay, so Farming Simulator 2008 is it had a rougher launch than Cattle and Crops. Everybody wants to talk about Cattle and Crops, about how all the features it lacks, but let me tell you, Farming Simulator 2008, you had one crop, wheat, and there was no sell point, there was no money. If you wanted a mod installed, you had to edit the save game XML, and for no reason at all, your save game could get completely corrupted. Like you could
Wow.
have hours upon hours in it. So in 2008, a group of German modders, the most memorable and he still has a YouTube, is Face 2K Manu, created the grass mod. They added the ability to mow grass and pick it up. You couldn't bale it, but you could ted it, you could windrow it, and all this stuff.
Sure.
There was also straw mod because your combine didn't actually produce any straw.
Mm-hmm.
Just as basic as you could imagine, this game was like it was, but it was still leaps and bounds ahead of Sim Tractor. Even though Sim Tractor was more realistic,
Right.
it was unbearable to play it
Mm-hmm.
compared to this. Like you could not go back to it.
Wow.
So then we go to 2009. This is when the idea of the store came about and money and selling, but there was still only one crop. It was the same basic game engine as 2008, as far as I remember. You no longer had to edit your save game to spawn your mods. There was still a lot of limitations on what modders could do. Like you couldn't have my favorite thing to use because there's no North American modders were those dolly wagons like what we have in the game where it's you got the dolly on the front and it's just a dumping wagon.
Yeah.
So those are my favorite to use, but you had to attach the dolly to the wagon because they didn't allow you to have the dolly work separate back then.
Right.
2009 also switched from Fent to Deutz Far, I believe, and then fast forward a little bit, we go to 2011. They introduced multiplayer. This was the first. Oh, sorry. I should go back a bit. I believe 2009 also had straw by default. You could, but you could definitely you could definitely bale straw as far as I remember, because I remember them teasing the bale trailers and the loaders and whatnot.
Wow.
But fast forward to 2011, this was the beginning of the beginning. When they added multiplayer, I swear the community quadrupled overnight,
Yeah.
and the multiplayer was awful. Like it's basically it's the same as what we have now, but scripts didn't work.
Oh.
Custom scripts, none of them would work in multiplayer. You could not make them work.
Yep.
There was no code to make it run on both sides. So 2011 brought about some DLCs, the BGA.
Ooh.
Trying to think what else. There was greenhouses. So basically the placeable system, I believe, actually came in 2011 at the very basic version of it. It's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one more DLC, but the important thing about the BGA DLC was they added the ability to ferment the silage. So this is where the modders started really taking off.
Yeah.
Um, there was the LSUK or FSUK, depending on when you found them, mod team, and the guy that ran FSUK is actually that Russ guy I talked about earlier. But he tried to make SimiFarm.
Right.
So this guy had a lot of involvement in the community too. He was a moderator for SimTractor. He tried to make SimiFarm, and then he ran one of the biggest websites in the farm sim community.
Wow.
Yeah, he was pretty cool. But so these guys were able to create the feeding system that we have now, where you had to mix the silage with hay and everything. The reason why it's so basic is they just basically copied the script. It was literally you put hay, silage, and straw in, and it hasn't changed since.
Yeah.
And I believe they carried it into 13.
Yeah.
But 20. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, 2011 was really, like, well, just to put it into context for people watching, like, 2011 seems like forever ago. And if you look at screenshots of Farming Sim from 2011, it looks blocky and ancient, doesn't it? But you got to remember,
Yeah.
like, 2011 is the same year that Skyrim came out. It's the same year that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 came out. It's the same year Dark Souls came out. Like, it's just important to put that in perspective and just
Yeah.
kind of remember that. And the other thing about 2011 was it was really, 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 really the turning point for mods. Like,
Yes.
Nagstead was in the community during that time, and he was doing incredible mod work for what tools they had in 2011. And some of his models are still in the game being used as mods.
And not to get sidetracked about Negsted, but he actually left in 2012, I believe. He
Right.
started in 2008. Me and him used to chat on MSN Messenger all night, all summer. It was my idea for him to make that for. I think he made a 4450
Yeah.
that was eventually turned into a 4440. That was my idea. He asked me because he lived in Denmark, right?
Right.
He was very interested, but he didn't really know all of the equipment. So
Right.
he was asking anybody that would talk to him that seemed decent enough about questions about this and that. And yeah, he made a lot of what we still have today.
He yeah. He
Yeah,
made
he was a great guy.
that John Deere 500 grain cart. That's
Or the
yep.
or a 40 series, a certain guy converted.
Yeah,
Or
something like that. So you're telling me I owe my modding career to you in a
no, I owe
way?
my modding career to you because you were the one that got me started.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, that's funny. And so, yeah, just to make that point, FS11 was a real big turning point in the series, and it happened early in the series' life, but
Yes.
very impactful. And if, there are a lot of mods, 3D models in the game that are still being used that came from that era. So really interesting to point out. But then I guess we went through 13, 15, and 17 after that, didn't we?
Yeah, and I'm probably just gonna talk up to 13 because I actually
Sure.
only played 29 hours of 15.
Yeah.
Um, so 2011 was when the realism really peaked too, right? With
Mm-hmm.
Nexted's Combine and his 8300, I think it was.
Yeah.
Those were amazing mods. But he came in second last in the contest because Giants didn't let him put his guide to using that 8300 on his release post.
Oh,
Nobody knew how to use the thing,
yeah.
and it was only available in English too. But that should have won. That should have been the standard for which Giants made the next game, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing is it probably never will be.
Yep.
They'll never build anything to that standard, but who knows? I hold out hope that someday they will, but
Well,
yes, just
always optimistic. Yeah, they had modding contests all the way back in 11.
it goes back to 2008, man.
Oh, all the way back to '08. Man, they knew this game
Yep.
needed mods from the start, didn't they?
And even back then they were flying in to go tour the factory. That was the grand prize.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of tradition and history.
Mm-hmm.
So then FS13, this was a kind of another turning point. I didn't really play a whole lot of it either, and trying to remember what all they added. Um, Obviously everybody's familiar with the Titanium DLC, which added Westport. Wait, no, Westport. Westbridge Hills. Westbridge Hills. It added the first American map, even though all the equipment was still EU spec.
Mm-hmm. Of
They
course.
added yep, of course. I was just trying to think. 13, everything from 13. As soon as Nexted left, I kind of took a big hiatus until late FS17.
Right. Right.
So I apologize to the
Mm,
listeners, but I can't really tell you what happened in
no,
13.
that's all right. Just from my background, I think I started playing in FS15. I remember. I don't know what happened. Like, I remember it was my freshman year of college, and I got like a new laptop for college and everything because I just had a school issued one up until that point. And I just remember like getting a Steam account and all this other stuff, just kind of the freedom, you're on your own, spend your own money, you have your own stuff, do your own thing. And I don't remember how I found out about Farming Simulator 15. It might have been, I guess, I think I used to be a watcher of the Yogscast, and they would do, if you've ever heard of them, um, big fan of them back in like the Minecraft days of like 2000, like, 11 and 12 and stuff. But anyway, I remember like they would do a Christmas stream, and they would always buy like Farming Simulator and goof around in it. Well, I have a I have a deeper history with agriculture. Like both my uncles are farmers. I was around those farms all the time growing up as a kid, riding in tractors, helping with planting, harvesting, all that other stuff. I've almost always been around farms my entire life. So like I saw them goofing around in the game, and I thought, well, I'd like to do that, but I'd like to try it and take it seriously. So I bought FS15, and I had a lot of fun doing it, but I didn't really know about mods at that point. I didn't really, know a lot of stuff, and it was just kind of a game with a bunch of European equipment. So I was like, oh, this is fine, but like, it only offers so much. And so I played a bit of 15. I think I played even less of 17, honestly. I tried it a little bit. They had a little bit of Americanized equipment in that game. And then 19 came around, and 19 had John Deere, and my dad works for John Deere, and a lot of my family members use John Deere equipment, so of course I was really excited, and that's kind of how I got into 19 and modding and that sort of stuff. But do you want to like kind of tell the story about how you got into modding, because our stories about that are actually kind of intertwined?
Yeah. I gotta go back. I gotta go to 17 for a bit here,
Sure,
actually.
sure.
So, up until literally the last days of FS17, I did not know there was a North American modding community at all for this game. Like, I had been so intertwined with FSUK and all that, and like between Dagstead leaving and the drama of FS13, I just didn't. I stopped playing for so long. It was Seasons in FS17 that brought me back, and then
Really?
then the vehicle control, or no, sorry, it was the gearbox item back then. That dragged me in. I was hooked. I was playing on some 4X German or Swiss Alps map, and it was pretty cool. And I just there was mods coming out, but there's some mods from FS11 I want to try and convert. This is my first attempt. I don't really talk about this a lot.
No.
I horrendously converted this trailer into FS17 from FS11 from FSUK. It was the FSUK mod team silage trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and it did not. I think you could fill it, but you couldn't see the fill plane. You could dump it out, but there was no effects. Like, it was bad. I had no idea what I was doing. I completely winged it, and I was pasting node IDs instead of indexes. Like, that's how little I
Oh.
understood. Like, I was so bad, man,
Yeah.
and it was just completely error filled. But I'd given up for a while after that. So then FS19 came out, and I was playing it, and I'm like, okay, this. I I had gotten into a good argument on Facebook with some modders saying, "Oh, they're all the modders leaving the community, and you people have nothing left, and all this and that." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well watch this." And I started my page up that day, slapped the 2017 albedo map texture of of the North American New Holland big square baler over top of the in-game one, I believe is what I did, and released it that day. Thinking, oh yeah, I'm king of the king of the hill now. I finally did something successful,
Nice.
and then everybody and their brother released essentially the same thing, but you did. I had no idea. Like, I honestly had no idea what I was doing,
Right.
other than replacing some files. So then I'm trying to. I know we got intertwined here at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
before that,
I
I was
I
watching. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, um, no, you go ahead. We'll reach a certain
Okay.
point and then I'll tell my side.
Okay. So I was watching QSL modding
Mm-hmm.
uh, try and edit the 7070. I guess it was just a 7010 series. In Europe, they all look the same. He was editing a 7810, and it wasn't going well, and I didn't feel like paying for a Patreon. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna download the public version of this and try it myself. And I just started putting custom modding's wheels on it, and then I kind of abandoned that. But I was staying up till like 8 a.m. every day. I mean, I worked afternoons, so it wasn't out of the question I was staying up till 6.
Right.
But I was pushing an extra 2 hours just going to town on this thing. And I think I had previous experience. I think I swapped the weight out on Elite Modding Quebec 6M to the North American weight. And I was just messing around with little stuff like that. And then it wasn't until Ross released his 707010 series, and I'm like, okay, well, I got the mechanical front wheel drive axle for this thing. I'm gonna make this tractor every option that it came with. So we have the mechanical front wheel drive and the two wheel drive, and I'm gonna do it in one pack. I'm gonna add more wheel options. I'm gonna do all this. But the problem was the front axle I had wasn't UDIM, and it looked like absolute crap on there. And
Mm-hmm.
then somehow me and you started talking.
I remember how that happened.
Okay,
You
I'm
were
glad
you
one
were
of us
you
does.
you had your Facebook post, and you were playing on a map, and one day I was like, I'll explain my point of view up to this point. I was in my last year of college. First year of college was 15. Last year of college was 19. The fall of 19, or fall 18 was when 19 released. But anyway, I remember getting Farming Simulator like on release because I was excited for John Deere and all this other stuff. It looked like it had some cooler features. The graphics were a little nicer, which is nice because sometimes the older farming sim games are a little hard to look at. Let's be honest. But I remember getting the game, and I was excited and I was happy, but like just trying to play. First of all, the I didn't like the American map that came out with 19. I don't think a lot of people did, so I ended up playing on Felsbrunn instead, which was fine. I was having a good time, but at a certain point, I wanted more. I wanted more from the game. I wanted more American things. I wanted to play in a more American way, and there was nothing. Like I found like fs19mods.net or whatever, that site where people can spam upload mods to like sketchy website links or whatever it is. I found that, and there's a ton of stuff to search, but when you search it, it's almost all European stuff. There's almost no John Deere stuff or older stuff or anything, right? And trying to grind through the game in the early game with like expensive brand new equipment is a slog. In real life, you would buy used stuff, but anyway, I digress. At some point, I just remember it was late December, early January, 2018, 2019, that I remember at some point I finally found like some John Deere mod on that mod hub, and it was a really really crappily converted 4640, and I
Oh,
downloaded it. Like somebody had just like put it through like the whatever the auto converter was at the time.
oh,
they had
that thing is
just
the worst.
they had just done it, thrown it up, and I downloaded it and I played it, and I'd never used a bad mod before. I'd never even used a mod before. Like I had used mods in 17, but I had never used like a bad mod before, and it was horrendous. Like the steering wheel didn't turn, the lights didn't work. It drove forwards, backwards, turned left and right, and that was about it. And so at that point, I had been waiting a while for anything to show up that piqued my interest, and I finally got something, and it was so crappy, I couldn't believe it. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to learn to do this myself. How hard can it be? So I downloaded Giants Editor, I learned what an XML was, and the rest is history. Like I found out it wasn't scaled right for a 46. It was a 42, 44 size. So I rescaled things. I learned UDIM through like the one or two YouTube videos that were around during that time. I watched like weird 17 like tutorials to kind of learn Giants Editor because Giants Editor was kind of similar. I kind of taught myself XMLs because if you read it long enough, it's kind of self-explanatory and you can experiment to see what works and what doesn't. And so that's kind of just how I came up with the 4440 and the 4240 and that kind of stuff. And okay, so this leads into how we met each other. Was one, I had my Rooster Mods Facebook page. In case I didn't even introduce myself at the beginning, but I'm Rooster Mods. Sorry guys. Um, I was just sitting on my Facebook page and I got a notification like you've got a mention. I was like, oh, who mentioned me? This weird guy called Tyson Diniz. And I looked at it and you were like, you were parked on a hill, there was an auger, and there was a 4020 attached to the auger, and you were unloading a gravity wagon with my 4440. And you had some post about like, oh, like Rooster Mods made this nice 40 series I like using, like go check him out or whatever. You mentioned me in some post like that. And then I messaged you. I was like, hey, thanks. I'm glad you like it. And then we just kind of got talking. We messaged each other back and forth occasionally. And then you mentioned your server a couple times, like your farming sim server. And at some point, I just asked you, like, hey, can I join? Can I like come play with you guys? And you weren't like famous like you are now, at that point. So you were just like, oh sure. So you just sent me a link and I joined, and rest is history. That's my point of view of it. And I remember
I,
helping you with some modding stuff.
so that map was Autumn Oaks, and actually, crap, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Oh, I remember you being more famous than I was, so I thought I was really making it big time here when you joined my server, man.
Right, right.
And I remember what I needed help with the most was you doing that front axle, and
Mm-hmm.
in the end it was just like I didn't know enough of what I was doing to do it,
Yeah,
and it ended up just somebody released a UDIM version of the tractor,
yeah.
and I just ripped that axle off, put it right on there, and the rest is history on that thing.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that shortly before my hiatus from the community. But because I think I took my on our personal server, I left shortly after we stopped playing. I think I left right before we stopped playing Midwest Horizons.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
I remember that.
You never played on Automokes. We went straight to Midwest.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yep. But so yeah, so that's kind of how that's how I guess that's my story. How I got into modding, how you got into modding, how you got into Farming Simulator, how I got into Farming Simulator. So let's have some more casual talk right now. So like, what's going on in the community? What are your thoughts? I mean, you've stuck with the. I've been gone for about a year, and so in a few months. So you've been way more in touch with the community than I have. I'm working my way back into it, but you got any thoughts on like what's going on in the community in general, sort of stuff? Got anything you're working on? Anything exciting? What do you think?
Oh well, in terms of the community in general, it's the community is like, I guess the word is parabolic. Like we're at the low point of the parabola kind of thing here, where everybody's antsy, waiting for Giants to make the next move, announce a new game, right? Nobody's doing anything
Yeah,
really.
parabolic. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we're pretty much at the base here. Like you can tell people are bored because like there's no drama or anything. Like it's nice. This is the calm before the storm.
It's
But
small time drama.
yeah, it's like not even like yeah, well yeah, it is pretty much. It's just like just there's no public drama. It's nice. It really is.
Yeah.
And I just know as soon as the new game launches, it'll just be like the first days of 19 all over again, right back up to the top of the parabola.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's that.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's the same thing has happened. The same kind of drama back in 13 when I left. The reason I didn't play 15 was it was awful. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean I didn't go back to it after I'd first tried it because it just didn't have that same spark.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like they focused so much on the forestry because the one map was just all trees pretty much as far as I remember.
Yep.
I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't find anything good.
I remember course play in 15. I did that a lot. That was pretty fun to play with because that were the first days of course play. I believe.
No,
No?
course play dates back to 2008.
Oh man, see, I don't know anything.
I can't even remember what it was called back then, but yes. I sent somebody a while ago, asked for a YouTube video what FS 2008 looked like. I sent them a video of somebody using what the equivalent of course play back then. Oh, you name it. We've come so far, but when you look back, you're like, oh, we've had all this the entire time. It just didn't work as nice.
We've been running on a treadmill the whole time, actually, just keeping up
Yeah.
with what we have.
We went from having everything. We went from pushing carts with square wheels to having round wheels.
Big improvement. Big improvement.
But it's the same cart.
Yep. Yep. It's actually true. Oh man.
And,
So.
and then
Yeah.
Oh, and then as we get down towards what essentially will be Giants announcing a new game, my prediction is they will announce it in the next couple months with the release date set for early 2022, and it'll be called FS22. Those are my predictions. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to put that out there. I didn't know where to tell somebody that. It's just you can't. Didn't feel right just dumping that on my page and just having people just argue over it.
We're on the
And
record
then-
now, sir. We've got you on the record. This is your official prediction.
Yeah, that's my official prediction. And as that is my prediction, I am trying to get all my projects out there. Like I'm trying to get everything done.
Yep.
And although I am starting 2 more projects, I want to get them. I want to get what I have already promised over a year ago. Some of these projects, I want to get them done.
Yeah.
Get them done. Get them out there. Focus on maps. Like I can't make my own models, but I can definitely do some crazy things to a map.
And maps can translate between games pretty well. It's a little bit of work, but it.
Yeah, like Autumn Oaks dates back to 15, and look how beautiful it looks in 19 when I added the seasonal deco foliage and the seasonal effects.
Yeah.
It's a completely different map.
Absolutely. No,
So
I mean,
that's-
I was going to ask about that, but I'm glad you brought that up yourself. I mean, yeah, we're kind of expecting a new farming simulator announcement, around the normal E3 time, like April, May sort of thing. I think that's a pretty reasonable guess as to what's going to happen. And for my own prediction, I can't even stray far off from what you've thought. Like, I guess maybe I could even see it happening this fall because fall releases are so common. But I mean, I think we kind of know one's coming out somewhat soon. They skipped a year,
Yeah,
and I think there was some sort of equipment manufacturer on Instagram that mentioned that, oh, we're going to be in the next farming simulator game or something like that. I forget
that
who
was
it
Load
was.
King,
Load
Canadian
King.
company.
Oh yeah, yep. I heard
Yeah,
about that.
I was at the drop in there. That is Canadian company.
You're in touch with all things Canada.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, we're kind of expecting one soon, and I'm kind of on the same train as you are there. Like, I've got a mod in development right now that, um, It's only one thing. I'm only really committed to one, maybe two projects right now. So I'm confident I want to get it out there. But you're kind of right. Like, time's running out for 19 stuff here, and we're gonna have to start gearing up and getting ready for, modding for FS21. I mean, 22
23.
actually. 20
23.
23. Sorry, official prediction 23. And, Lord knows how much they're going to change the game engine, how easy it's going to be to convert things. Who knows? It could be easy,
Yeah,
it could be extremely difficult. We don't really know. So,
and that's kind of what's making me like think, you know what? I don't care if I start on a project now because who knows what we could be facing. Like it's dangerous times because Giants has really doubled down on consoles.
they have.
Like it's like what are they gonna do to get console users to buy this game is their main focus. Not how can we make modding easier? How can we make this game better? It's what can we do to make them buy our game?
Yeah,
That's
how can
their
we get
main.
more console sales? Because there are two
And
when you have a game like this, there are two paths you can go down. You can really appeal to the hardcore simulators, or you can appeal to the casual fan base. And I think their angle right now is, let's appeal to the casual fan base, get a ton of console sales, and the modders can figure out how to make it more realistic. But the modders have to restart every 2 or 3 years, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and it gets worse every time. Like
Mm-hmm.
from FS17 to FS19, converting the Lua guys that actually write the scripts say it's you basically get to rewrite everything. If
Yeah.
they do that again, we're gonna see a mass exodus of guys who can write Lua, and that's dangerous.
Yeah,
Like
and they didn't
that's
document. I remember there was a ton of documentation for 17, but there wasn't really a lot for 19. They didn't
and they never
document their
released
Lua
it.
code changes.
They never released it
Nah,
ever, as far as I understand. It never came out. I could be wrong. I haven't gone down the path of writing Lua yet.
that's why
But
it took modders so long to get things like course play and GPS up and running. Like, yeah, sure, it was a few months, but if you were there during those few months, it felt like forever, you know?
yeah,
Um, but rumor has it, and I believe this honestly, that I think they're going to implement some sort of seasons in the next base game.
oh yeah, they kind of teased it with the cover photo they had on Facebook for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
They had their major brands, and in each background was a different season.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
think
pretty
that was a
much can
mistake on their part.
because because they work closely with the seasons guys.
Yes,
Like,
the lead developer of
yeah,
Seasons is actually works for Giants directly, like he's in the office.
yeah, like I would bet there's a 95+% chance that seasons are in the base game next time, and hopefully they implement it well, right? But at least it'll be
Yes,
something, because farming sim without seasons, it just ain't the same, man. It just ain't the
I,
same.
it isn't. I don't know what my future holds. Like, am I gonna keep modding for 19? Like, is Giants gonna royally drop the ball on this? Like, that's my biggest worry. And we have hit the peak of what we can do with this game. Like, we're just expanding. We're just like we're building a fort at the top of Everest here with what we can do now.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
we've
right.
got
We're just building pretty little. Yeah, we're just adding little decorations to the massive castle we built.
yeah. And at this point, if Giants drops the ball on 23, if they don't add anything realism wise or anything really cool, there's no reason for most of us to move forward. We have everything we want. I don't want to wait a year and a half for ad config to come back. I don't want to have only three options on my tractors. If the game looks visually similar and the seasons and all the realism stuff doesn't really move forward, we're better off sticking with 19 because of just the stuff we can do still.
Yeah,
Like it's gonna
yeah, I remember there were a few modders and players that were somewhat prominent in the community that did take a while to come over to 19 from 17. I remember a few of them said, you know what, like 19's fine, but it doesn't have all this stuff. It's going to take a while for it to get there. I already have all this stuff in 17. I already know how to work within the 17 game engine and framework. I'm just going to stay here. And, you know, I think 99% of them have come around to 19 by now, right? But it not
More like
after
97.
not not without a few months of resistance and like pain, right, to learn and get over. And I'm worried if they make the hurdle too high, people aren't going to want to jump it. And you know what, more power to them, right? Play what you like. If you don't like a game, don't play it. If you like a game,
Yeah.
play it. You already have it, you already own it. But I want the next games to be succeed. I want there to be massive leaps in technology. I hope they leap high, but they set the bar low enough for modders that stuff can be brought over. And the base game already has a lot of the seasons and maybe even like GPS. That'd be amazing for the base game
Yes,
covered.
exactly. Like, why add precision farming and not GPS? But
Yeah.
to expand on that, like, add config should not exist. We should be able to just write a configuration right into the mod desk without a script.
Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by add config? I think that's a little bit of an advanced topic.
Okay, so so by default, Farming Simulator only allows you to have certain configurations. If you have a tractor, you pretty much can change the attachers, the wheels, the and the design. I think those are, and your front loader. So you have four options. So all of your store options
Mm-hmm.
have to go through those. Now you can create a new specialization, which is, I won't go too in depth on this, but everything in Farming Simulator has what's known as a vehicle type, and within the vehicle type, there's specializations.
Mm-hmm.
So what I meant to say earlier is you can create a new vehicle type, so you can make a tractor have the ability to read the lines of you could write for a combine. So now you can add a pipe configuration.
Right.
Now you can add some other configurations. This is what guys did to get around this. But I think the most you could ever do was like 8 different types of configurations
Mm-hmm.
to change stuff in the store. So add config adds the ability to have, I think it's like 999,000 or 999,000 different configurations.
Like mod options, like color
Yeah,
options,
store
tire
options.
options, store options. Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't get rid of the 64 tire limit
Sure.
for in terms of tire options, but it allows you to just generate whatever options you want, and that should have been a feature in 19 when they came out with these store options the way they did.
Yep.
And I hope that it is a feature in 23 because that would be a leap forward. But another thing is, one of the major hurdles from 17 to 19 was the UDIM system,
Mm-hmm.
which I applaud them for doing that. Having the lights actually work like lights, and
Instead of
the way the
Coronas.
materials, yeah, because like the lights just shine the same no matter what they were shining on too,
Yeah.
right? Like the material system.
No, their lighting system is a lot better, and the UDIM
Yes,
system is difficult to learn, but you know the ceiling is a lot higher on what that's capable of.
and from what I understand, in the end, it's easier to UDIM something that's complex than try to put an albedo map over it.
Yeah, no, an albedo map is a piece of art. It takes a lot of it's difficult to do that, honestly. And UDIM, you can do it quickly and easily. It won't look great, but I think it's quicker and easier to throw a UDIM on something than it is to make an albedo map.
Now, messing around with spec maps and normal maps, though, you can definitely
That's
can
the
make
next level.
Yeah, but that's what really makes things pop is the custom
yeah.
spec maps.
You can look at when you see the difference between something that's normal mapped and something that's not normal mapped. You can tell the difference. And to say that the generic like gen dirtware and the generic wear maps and the generic normal maps, they do look fine, right?
Yes,
They look acceptable on something in the game. They don't look as clean and neat as some of the custom ones, but they look fine. And yeah, I'm really happy they do. Like the floor is a lot lower for you're getting into that.
Yeah, and like normal maps are optimization only. Spec maps are your dirt and wear.
Yep.
And somewhere in there you got your AO bake as well, and that's what really
Yeah.
that and the lighting system together just make things look amazing.
Yep. I hope.
And-
Yeah. I can't see them rehauling that whole system, right? Like, I think they're pretty close to optimal visual appearance because, like, I think people knew that like an albedo map is all right, but it could be better. And I think this system is pretty good. I don't
It
see them
is.
changing it a ton. I think there are better things to focus on in Farming
Sounds.
Simulator than the visuals. This the sounds.
Oh God.
Yeah.
What a
So
what a disaster.
we have high hopes for FS 22 or 23 or whatever 21 or whatever it's going to be.
And another thing that they are likely to overhaul, not I assuming sounds are on the list,
Mhm.
but I'm hoping, and it's going to be 2022. The consoles all have multi-core processors. We need multi-core support in
Yeah.
the next Farm Sim. We can't keep pushing forward with what we can do on one core. What are we all supposed to go out and buy AMD Threadrippers? Like,
Yeah, no.
just and overclock them to whatever. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's got to run on more than one core.
I have a buddy who's a software engineer, and I asked him about this the other day because I was thinking about it. And I'm like, well, why would a program only run on one core or like this and that? And I don't. He explained it in a very top-down scale, but basically, like you have to share the code that the CPU is reading. You have to like split it up so that multiple cores can read it and put it together at the same time. And it's
Yes,
not impossible. A lot of games do it. It's just it
Arma did it.
takes extra. Yeah, it takes extra time and dev effort. It's difficult to do. It's not impossible. It's done all the time. It just takes a lot of effort to do it. And like maybe I'm hoping that the extra year they took off from Farming Sim was to like add multi-core support because nobody has single core processors anymore, right? That's just
Nope,
not a thing. The
nope.
minimum is 4 cores nowadays. If you're not
Yep,
taking advantage
six
of
actually.
that, yeah, if you're not taking advantage of that, you gotta at some point, right? Like
It's bad. It's absolutely that should be illegal at this point. Making a video game that is solely single core.
we're sad that Farming Sim doesn't have it, but we are optimistic and excited that it might have it. We only want the best for this game because we
And
love this game.
I never want to hear them say it's impossible because anybody who knows about Arma 3 mid development, like they were literally had the game out for years, and they went back and they added multi-core support to the existing game for free.
Right. It's not
And
impossible. No, nobody
and
believes that.
their sandbox game is more ridiculous in terms of what you can do than Farm Sim for the most part. I mean, Farm Sim has some advantages, but we're not going to get into that.
Right.
The idea is that another simulator game was willing to go rewrite their entire game engine basically in a way that it allows for multi-core. So why can't Farm Sim do it? And I can understand if they don't want to do it between releases, but they should definitely do it for the next one. Like at the whatever game comes out in the next 6 to 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
it should have it should have multi-core support.
Because
There's no excuse
yeah,
for it anymore. Like, what could you possibly use to justify it?
surely it would help the console performance too.
Yeah, like that. There's your slot limit right there. Like,
Right.
you got like the PS4 had what, like a 16 core CPU, and you're only running one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
there you go, right there.
What do you think? Do you think that they will release it for Xbox One and PS4, or will it be strictly new gen? I'm guessing they'll probably sell it for the old gen too. Part of me wishes they wouldn't, because when you design a game to function on both old gen and new gen, you are holding yourself back a little bit in some ways. You are restricting your development in certain ways because the game does have to work on older generation consoles. I would
Yes,
hope that they only make it for new gen and PC, but if I was going to be a realist, I would say it's probably going to be on Xbox One and PS4 also.
I actually have some thoughts on that too. Actually, so for a while there, Giants was doing polls
Mm-hmm.
from the community. They asked, "Do you use Seasons Mod? Do you use this? Do you use that?" One of them was, "Are you planning on upgrading your console?"
Mm.
The results of that poll were horrendous. If Giants hopes to not make the game for the old consoles, because first of all, nobody can seem to get their hands on them,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
and the
That's nobody.
cost of them
That's not.
too.
That's not Giants' fault. That's not the players' fault. That's just how it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and so they did it in 15, and the way it worked at 15 was their slot count. I'm assuming was much lower if there was a slot count.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know too much. I don't know too much about it, but what I do know is that they didn't get the DLCs, and
Ah,
there's a bunch of they lost a ton of features, and it looked like crap. There was
Yeah.
like they'll likely do it again.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would that'd be what I would guess. I my hope is it doesn't they're not afraid to push boundaries and go farther with the game in fear that they will not make it work for the older gen consoles. That's just my hope. I just hope they're willing to try new things, push boundaries and give us more
yes.
features and not sacrifice that in the name of console performance.
And I also think that their whole idea is, well, if they make a horrendous old gen version, when these people finally get a new gen console, they'll probably buy the game
And
again.
you know what, that's true too. If you know if they see how much better the new gen is, Xbox, PlayStation wants that, they can I yeah. There's benefits
Yeah,
to it. I'd really hope that yeah, I just hope that it doesn't distract their development efforts too much. So,
yeah. I mean, they're very much console focused,
all right.
though.
We're getting on 50 minutes here. So, we're going to wrap things up here. I think we're going to go over the amount of gameplay I had recorded for this, so I'll go record some more. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to share? Any exciting mods coming up? Anything you wanted to share or not really? Anything you wanted to put
Well,
out there?
the 8030 series is almost done. Like I always say this, but like I basically need to sit down a few more times, and that's it. It's released pretty much. I just need to find the time.
Nice.
But I also, to anybody working at Giants right now, I want to know why did you guys only get tractors from John Deere? We got zero implements. What were you guys thinking? Like John Deere's known for their corn planters, their balers, their tillage equipment.
Come on, man. Listen to him,
Yeah,
Giants. This man's been a loyal supporter since before most of you were working at Giants. Give
yeah.
this man some answers.
I know almost all of the guys I see on the forums. I don't recognize any of their names.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
that's pretty
All right.
much.
So we're gonna reach the end here. How about promote yourself a little bit? Share it. Where should we go to find you? Where should we go to? Where should we subscribe? Where should we follow? Where should we like? Pimp
All
yourself
right,
out a little bit.
all right. So on Facebook, I'm Diniz Farms, Farming Simulator Modding. So that's Diniz. On YouTube, I'm Tyson Diniz. On Instagram, which I don't use very often, I'm Diniz Farms. And my Discord is linked on every platform I'm on, I believe. That's my main form of communication. I know people message the page all the time, but man, they can sit there for weeks at some points because I can't stand the messaging system built into the Facebook page.
Yeah, and I'm a moderator on his Discord, so you better watch out.
Yeah, you're actually an admin.
I'm an admin. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Uh,
moderators can't ban people.
All right. So as for me, I'm Rooster Mods, aka Roozsta. You can find my Facebook page, Rooster Mods. You can. I have a Discord, but it is not public yet. Might make that public. We'll see. You can find me on Tyson's server though, if you have to find me and message me about something. And of course, I'm making. There's a YouTube. There. If you're not watching this on YouTube, there's going to be a YouTube channel for this podcast that you can go watch some just lovely farming simulator. I think this one's going to be a nice harvest on Midwest Horizons. That'll be nice to watch. So yeah, that's where you can find me. There's also a Facebook page for this podcast. I'm hoping I can get this on if this gets a decent following, maybe on Spotify or iTunes or whatever. It's not too hard to get a podcast published there. So. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for joining me, Tyson. I just wanted to say, before we go, you are an amazing force in the farming sim community right now. Between all the drama and all the craziness, you are a voice of calm and reason, and you do good work. And it has been really awesome to see you kind of grow and learn to mod and become who you are. And you've cultivated a great community, and you've done a lot of nice things for this community. And I think it's nice to see you finally get your comeuppance from being around since before some of the people in the community or some kids playing this game were even born.
Yeah,
So
I'm talking to guys who have like 2010 in their name.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
just really awesome. Thank you for doing what you do in this community. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It's really
Hey,
great. So thank you.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
And
course.
oh, I've already lost a train of thought.
You have to go do a stream. You got to go
Yes, I
stream for your
do.
YouTube channel. Hopefully
Oh,
we might pick up this another conversation in maybe a few episodes or something. We'll see.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me, and hopefully we can get published on Spotify because then I can definitely tell everybody about this so they can
Yeah.
listen to me.
I'll have to look into that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see the future episodes as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much. See ya.